you just have to score that specific area. I would use ChatGPT and Google, and I would put the condition that you're fighting or dealing with, or what you're trying to improve, and then just even ask the question: how long does this take? When did this study show a result? How soon could I expect this based on the clinical data? How can I make this therapy more effective? What herbs, nutrients could I take at the same time that would help activate the light that have been proven for this specific condition? Which wavelengths have been proven for this certain condition? So these are really great questions to ask, and you can get those answers easily.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me again and spending your valuable time right here today. Jonathan Otto, myredlight.com. Remember, we did an interview last month. There was so much interest in it, and people were so giving in the responses, and the comments were really very kind and very nice. And thank you for thinking in a forward direction of this darkness that pervades our planet. We are coming out of this. We're coming to a different world as the old one dissolves beneath our feet. You can see it in real time. And these type of futuristic devices that have come out and been suppressed for so long are at our doorstep again. And an enormous amount of people, I don't know, intuitively, they just saw it, and they saw this was something that is going to be part of our new world in terms of what we were not allowed to use in our last old world, for a better term, because I really do put that demarcation there somewhere in the last, specifically the last couple months or so, but previously back in 2022, you could see the world ended. So remember, myredlight.com, use the code ADAPT2030, and we're going to rip right into the interview because of your questions from the last time. I am going to sit here with Jonathan and ask, because all of these also piqued my interest. So I was curious too. And can we begin with a pulse question?
Okay.
So pulse versus wave light.
Do you think do you think they're talking about when you would pulse the device, or do you think they're talking about pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, PEMF?
I don't
Okay,
have
so
that. All I have is that question and the way it was written, and I just took it pretty much word for word.
yeah.
And I don't have any idea. But that's a good point that you bring up because those are very different. Can you walk us through both, maybe?
Yeah, I'll answer both. Okay, so let's say if it was like a pulsation on a device. Let's say here's a red light therapy belt, which you can see on the pages as well. It's a great way to do this and get it wrapped around your body as well as doing a full body panel. But here I'll put the setting on of raising up the frequency there to LT L4. Now I can put this so it's pulsating. So that's an example. And so I'd pulse that on the body. Okay, so the belief is that by doing so, it will drive the light deeper into the cells. That's a concept. The reason why pulsation was developed was because of lasers overheating. So lasers, because they were overheating, they'd have to like have it go on and off, on and off. So I'd actually argue on the consistency versus the pulsation, even though you have the ability to do that, just because it's something that is studied and some scientists see it as a viable option. My vote is on the consistent red wavelength without the pulsation. Okay, based on the fact that it's really just mitigating a heat issue, not that it makes it better. That's what I would argue. But if somebody, we have the opportunity to test it as well on our own selves and see. Now, if it's pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, well, this is like a magnetic therapy. Red light and near infrared is also electromagnetic. So there is this interesting crossover. So, which one is better or which one's more effective for which condition, etc. So one I would use, and I advocate for pulse electromagnetic field therapy. And it's part of the reason why you'll see it even on our page when people go to My Red Light, they'll see the option to get even a PEMF mat, and they could be lying on a PEMF mat with red light on top. Some people refer to PEMF in basic terms as grounding on steroids. So, if you're on the ground outside with your feet in the soil, or even in the ocean, there's a grounding effect there, but you're enhancing that through intensifying those electrons that are flooding into your body and interfacing with your body. So so you can combine these therapies. Light therapy, on the other hand, is the one that's interfacing most with the mitochondria. And so I haven't seen studies that I know of where scientists will get people to open their eyes in front of red light for 3 minutes, and then they test their eyesight, and it's got a 17% improvement immediately after one treatment. There's just differences, and certainly both have a lot of science on them, and I think that there's a reason why we also preclude it. So I certainly wouldn't say anything down about it, but they're, working with different functions. Like light is the best thing for mitochondria. So then, use light therapies for this. Flood your body with the tools that it needs for electron transfer and electron connectivity in the body to basically help your body with the electrical currents that it uses, and PMF is helpful. So I'd be using both if you can.
And then you brought up kind of an important point when you touched on that for a second there. Does the RL Pro account for individual physical differences? I guess it would mean like physiological or physiology differences. I know we're coming down to the cellular level. How different can it be? I mean, things operate different in different magnetic fields as well. So, I mean, when you're looking at the physiology of something, it can be changed by forces, external forces. But it was more, I guess, just a general thing. All right, my body's different than yours. What are the results going to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So your body and my body, David, we have mitochondria in our cells. You have mitochondria in your cells. I have mitochondria in my cells. They're in the organ cells, and so if you're using a device not like ours, we're accounting for all kinds of dramatic benefits across the board. And so the way to ascertain this type of information is, in this case, Google's your friend, ChatGPT's your friend. Look at the condition that you're battling, facing, or a loved one is, or something that you feel like maybe is genetic that you're worried about at sometime in the future, or something where you're just simply wanting more energy. And then put these things into Google, into ChatGPT, and then look at the wavelengths that are being used in those studies, and then you can then see, for example, like we have 9 different wavelengths in our devices from 480 up to 1060, and so those wavelengths are critical and effective for all different processes. The eyesight study I mentioned was at 670. There was a study that I mentioned last time that 660 is particularly effective, and caused that 40% reduction in the proliferation in a 24-hour period with human cells, both triple negative and non-triple negative. And so that was an important study. Then you just keep going through the list of things, and then the deeper penetrations are in the 800s, 810, 830, 850, 1060. They're the ones that we're using. Some of the most proven near-infrared wavelengths, and they're going to hit bone, interior tissues, brain. And the studies, the clinical studies, double-blind placebos are showing extraordinary results with these wavelengths, and we're seeing them firsthand. And the only real way for somebody to know for sure is to try it. And then you could see, and that's part of the reason why we do a 60-day money back guarantee, so people can try it and see what happens, and let us know. And so if they like it, they keep it. If they don't, send it back. Easy.
Is it measurable? I guess is there feedback or sensors that can measure that something's actually changed after the light therapy?
Yeah,
using the
absolutely.
RL Pro.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. So people, can use various measurements. One would be pain. And so that same 92-year-old woman, Joanne, she also had a lot of nerve pain in her feet, so a neuropathy, and these are documented. But so in this case, it was pain reduction. Like I can't feel any pain in my feet anymore. They keep me up at night. I'm always in pain with my feet. Now I don't have that anymore. So you see these things, so you can measure that, or you can measure eyesight, and so you can measure, and so that's through eyesight. Testing. You can measure depression levels, and this is done after red light therapy. And the studies on depression are super cool because they'll test them only an hour later. And so red light. Now I'm going to test you an hour later and using rigorous depression markers and scoring. And so they'll see an improvement in that first hour, and then the second hour they'll see an even greater improvement. But your body's responding quickly, and so then you keep going with something like that, and then you can see real turnarounds. When you look at something like so you keep going through different categories. When you look at Hashimoto's thyroiditis, studies that have been done on this condition are really great, and they'll typically test people. They'll put them on it within the study parameters are pretty poor. Like they'll put them on it for typically for 3 weeks, and only give it to them twice a week for 3 weeks, and then they'll take it off them and then test them at 3 months and 6 months. And the improvements are still dramatic, even though they've only had a few sessions and it was months ago. And their need for levothyroxine, which is Synthroid, is significantly decreased. Their body mass index has improved. The hip to waist ratio, the hip circumference, these things have improved dramatically. And so showing that the thyroid has been aided in this fashion. There's another 9-month study that showed that 47% of the patients no longer needed levothyroxine at all. And this was a 5-week study. And again, they tested them, then in 9 months. So they actually had them off the therapy. So you just have to look at all the different markers. And I believe that if they had have used better procedures there and they had kept people on that and they had have had it over all their organs, they could have expected much better improvements and argued that perhaps all of them, maybe, I don't know that for a fact, but I could assert that it's much more likely that you could get closer to 100% of people no longer needing that levothyroxine. So you just have to score that specific area. I would use ChatGPT and Google, and I would put the condition that you're fighting or dealing with or what you're trying to improve, and then just even ask the question, how long does this take? When did this study show a result? How soon could I expect this based on the clinical data? How could I make this therapy more effective? What herbs, nutrients could I take at the same time that would help activate the light that have been proven for this specific condition? Which wavelengths have been proven for this certain condition? So these are really great questions to ask, and you can get those answers easily. And the cool thing is when you're using a multi-spectrum device that has a lot of different wavelengths, like ours with 9, that you're either going to land on the exact wavelengths that we have or something very close to it. And then that way you'll be able to, get something that's like this study.
And the wavelengths that Jonathan's talking about, also, if you go to myredlight.com, there's an hour and a half, is it about an hour and a half documentary that goes through and walks through PDF that you've created also that shows you the specific wavelengths. I included those in the last video as well to show you what the wavelengths were and how they would handle different parts of the body. I'm definitely going to include that as I'm overlaying on this part right here. But if you want to watch a longer explanation of that and specifically what's the target, what's the wavelength, please jump over there, myredlight.com, and check out that longer video. That's more definitely a scientific presentation style. And that'll definitely fill in many, 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 many blanks that you're looking for. Now, speaking of skin tone, because when you were telling me about the depression, there are a lot of people, even if they go out onto the beach and just get that actual real sunlight for a few hours, like that's why people feel so good when they go on holiday. You're stuck in a tiny office somewhere and you get out for 2 weeks out on a beach somewhere, you come and get all that sunlight and you're like, whoa, I just revitalized, you come back to life, like out of a coffin, coming up.
A lot of people go to the beach as well, so they're getting all that salt water in their body, which is really helpful. Yeah, it's amazing. Like electrons and it's grounding. If you're swimming in the ocean, you're grounding. So that lots of things that we take for granted.
Yeah, so it brings me to the uneven skin tone. Can red light therapy help with uneven skin tone? Like, what that means better than I. Somewhere in there's a question.
Pigmentation, and I've struggled with that a lot because of the Malaysian side of my family. My siblings, my mom, Malaysian on that side, and it's had a real big improvement for me. No one's perfect, but if you look at the studies on hyperpigmentation, they're amazing with red light therapy. So it's going to help normalize and even out the skin tone, and it's not a tanning. So red light is not going to work like a tanning, but it will help fortify your skin cells and help regenerate your skin cells. And that will also help them. So when you're exposed to sunlight, you can actually not burn and you can tan in a nice way in the way that you need to. And it's going to help reverse a lot of the sun damage. I've got sun damage because of being a surfer and I'm not the guy that's telling people to worry about the sun. There's a lot of benefits that come with the sun, but then you can get some damage when you're out surfing for 3 hours and all this. And so it's been really helpful for normalizing that and the wrinkles that come with the sun damage and all of that. I'm 39 and I'm grateful because I had a lot of health conditions that would cause everything to turbo age me, like glandular fever, Lyme disease, Ross River fever, battled with all those things, chronic nausea, chronic dehydration. And I'm not exaggerating any of those things. Anyone that knows me and knew me at that time would know that I struggled a lot. And so, I've got a 6 and a 4-year-old and a couple of weeks now. He's turning 4, and to have the energy I need to play with him and to be like, this is one of maybe 6 or 7 different interviews today, and to be able to do all that and then be high and drop them off at school, their little homeschool pods in the morning, and then be with them and play with them through the evening. I'm just so grateful, because chronic fatigue was the worst thing that I suffered, and you just don't have energy for anything. And my wife struggled with a lot of conditions as well, and we just kind of saw our life get ruined in front of our eyes. And how that's caused marital issues for us, our health issues. Like everyone suffers when somebody's suffering with their health. And so it wasn't just one thing that turned that around. Hence why, I love to educate people on holistic health, getting gluten out of the diet, like specifically wheat gluten, and making sure you're hydrated and having a good diet that's filled with whole foods. But yeah, man, these things, and parasite cleansing. But red light therapy is one of those game changers that will help, like, and arguably help to set all the other things that you need to do in order, because it'll help give you the energy and give you improvements that give you hope and encouragement, and then it helps adapt the habits that you need to improve your life all around.
Yeah, because I kind of tested the sun thing in surfing, and like when it's double overhead and glassy and very few people in the lineup, I mean, you're going to stay out an extra hour or two way beyond where you should have stayed.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing is once you find those perfect conditions, sometimes you override what your brain's not working correctly to get in, because you get those days just nobody's out. It's like,
No, you got to do it, man. That's a gift from God. You take that gift.
yeah,
That's
right.
cool, man. I didn't know you surf. That's great. I love it.
Oh, I do. I did. I should say I did. I'm living in Tennessee with no ocean near me, but when I did have an ocean near me, I used to surf all the time. And I
Oh
can
man.
say something really about, I don't care if it's really a smaller wave or a larger wave, but just that ionic action you're talking about, those negative
Mm.
ions that just come continuously pounding in. And not only does it regenerate the ocean, especially if you're swimming in that area where the impact zone is, where everything's just like fluffy and bubbly and white and everything's churned. But if you're just there and you're breathing that in, you're just like immersed in this most perfect energizing environment. And then, when you go away from that, you can definitely feel the difference. That's why people love to go to waterfalls too. You get that same blast pattern coming off of that when the water, especially if it's a taller one, hits. And it, there's something about water that's agitated and hits another surface that really is beneficial for humanity. So what is it about the things we need? We need breath, and we need water, and then light as well. And then these are all just the basics of a human being getting more in harmony, and then kind of attuning, because you're going to have to do that to your higher self. If you're going to try to make any progress, you have to be functionally operational to the best of your ability to keep your body healthy.
No, 100% agree, Dave.
Yeah, and then so that's been taken away from us. And I'm not playing like victim here, but there's just so many toxic things around us, and how many things are allowed to be in the diets of Americans that are forbidden for most places overseas, including the chemicals that we spray on our crops are forbidden in other continents, not countries, continents.
Mm.
So then we get into this soup of, well, we need to do a lot of repairing to just the environment around us. It's maybe not an individual action, but it's just the environment that surrounds us in this modern era. And that's something to contend with. And any way that we can nullify some of those effects is something that I think really leads into these much longer periods for us to exist on this planet here.
Absolutely. And we did a lot of uncovering of what is actually going on with something like glyphosate. Like, what is it actually doing? What's it made up of? And we found a lot of data on that through patents. These cause severe mitochondrial damage. And so when mitochondria are damaged, then they're senescent, which means that they're zombie-like mitochondria, which then poison other mitochondria. And light will actually selectively target those mitochondria and take them out through a process called mitophagy, and then help pave way to new healthy mitochondria. And so a lot of the damage that people are experiencing, that's kind of almost impossible to avoid to its fullest extent, even though you can avoid a lot of it. and you should avoid everything you can. So then not everything you can't avoid, then you can just cleanse. And so then you kind of you can win, because you don't have to have all the toxins out of your body. You have to have enough out of your body in order for you to be experience good health and fight the big diseases that we all should be concerned about. And so yeah, that's a good a good understanding of how to tackle those types of issues. What else you got for us, Dave?
Overlapping on interference between dual LEDs, which I think they're jewel LEDs because they're so beautiful. They actually look like a jewel, like something out of the Sleestack Kingdom off their board there. The jewel LEDs are dual LEDs because you got two LEDs that are over. So I guess we were talking about spectral overlap. You see this sometimes driving down a street where you see two sets of LED that are overlapping in on themselves and interference pattern there. You'll understand that as well. So the dual chips in there, if they're both at the same time, is there some overlapping light wave pattern in there that might disturb or affect the whole of the process?
Yeah, that's
for the therapy.
Okay. That's great. A great question. That's a very, very intelligent question. So I appreciate that. So there are great studies on dual LEDs, so that's good. So if that were the case, if they did confuse somehow the body or overlap in a way that it was then causing some kind of misfire, then we wouldn't see good results, for example. So so one, you can do your own searching on that and look up studies that specifically focus on dual LEDs, DUAL, dual, and so or dual is how an American would say it, and I'd say it like an Australian. Okay, so and then if somebody wanted to contend that and say, well, no, I don't think so, then just take it out. Then what you can do is you can actually just take it so you could control it. So you're just dealing with the one type at one time. So you could literally say go into settings, and then you could then control based on going into brightness, and then I could take out, for example, all of the I could take out now the blue, and I could take out, now I'm taking out the 590, now I'm taking out the 630, now I'm taking out the 660. Now I'm going to go to the next screen. Now that's only got 670 coming through it, out of the red. Now I've taken out all the red. Now I've only got infrared coming here, near infrared. So you could still see a tint coming on me, but you can't see really any of the light. So then what you could do is, if you wanted to do that, now I'm just going to do near infrared. And then what I could do is next time I could just do red, and I could only select the red wavelengths. If that's what I believed, then I could do that. All my studies show the exact opposite, where the more you can hit an even layer, in this case, like if I can give myself all these wavelengths, um, then at the same time and have them even spread in each LED. Look, I've just got it now on blue and near infrared only. But if I could have them all coming through at the same time, now I can have a complete even spread. And you have to understand, biologically, we're designed for sunlight, and red light and near infrared is simply replicating the sun. Um, and the sun has every part of the spectrum in it. And so and the red and the sunset and sunrise has a high concentration of the red and near infrared rays, hence why it's particularly beneficial. So that's kind of what I'd say to that. It's only increasing the benefit, and it's only spreading that out evenly, and it's also doubling the effect by giving you more over those concentrated areas that you want them. Like, because you got your heart here, I want to have double the amount of LEDs that are giving the healing wavelengths over that surface area and maximize the benefit.
I can't remember if I asked last time, but I'll ask the question again. And this is my last question that from all the comments out there. So thank you for everybody for putting down intelligent comments. Because I didn't know the answers to these either. And I was really interested to see, what the explanations were and how could delve deeper into red light therapy and really see how it interacts with us as a human species right here on the planet. Like, how can we harness this? Because if they've been trying to keep it away from us for 120 plus years, then what's so valuable in it that it needs to be suppressed? So the more info I can get about how it operates, how it works, everything, the better for me too. Because I'm one of those people who likes to read and investigate and do just a search of information on it. So the question I asked last time was, can you? And I can't remember. That's why I'm asking again. No question's a stupid question. Remember, everybody. Can I use it when I'm? Can you? Well, not me. I'm a guy, but yes, I'm a guy. Can I use it when I'm pregnant? I meant for the ladies out there.
Yeah. The studies on pregnancy with red light are awesome, actually. And I always want to I've got to say these things where I say consult with your healthcare provider and then do your own research. So what have I found when I've looked at that data? And I've seen that the results are extraordinary, not only for the mother's health, but for the baby's health. Some would go really conservative and say, yes, do it, but do it over the areas outside of where the baby is. So not over the belly, but over all the other areas and support mama with her health. And, sometimes people have feet swelling, like my sister. She recently had some like, feet swelling with her, pregnancy. And so I was urging her to get it over her feet, even though she may be a little gun shy. Because people don't want to rock the boat or do something different in a lot of cases, but just get it over the key areas that you need help with. Like a lot of women are going to have maybe some challenges with their thyroid, before and after pregnancy and types of things like that. So get it over the thyroid, get it over the brain, get it over the heart, get it over these areas. Or you look at the studies on neonatal care and see that babies in the womb actually respond really well to light, and dig into those studies, and then you can feel confident. And if you've got like a holistic doctor that's helping you, then you could show them that data and say, look, do you feel good about this, or do you already know about this, and do you feel good about this? And so that you don't feel like you're doing anything that you're worried about doing. But in terms of fertility, for all the women out there that maybe are having a hard time falling pregnant or keeping their babies and carrying to full term, the studies are fascinating and amazing when it comes to both men and women with infertility. For men with asthenozoospermia and increasing the sperm motility, and with women with helping the instances in which even severely infertile women are falling pregnant in large and long studies, like one that came out of Japan. Lots of great studies on fertility, and that gives you good clues into, well, if it's good for fertility, it makes sense that it would be good for pregnancy. And then you see the studies that it's good for pregnancy, and then you see studies that it's good for babies after the babies are born. It's also good for the babies. So
You heard it here first, second, and third. All right, Jonathan Otto, myredlight.com. Please remember, use the code ADAPT2030 and keep the questions coming. And Jonathan, I'll leave it open here for anything you want to say and just to take us out. But like just the way that things are moving, and do you, it's sort of a business thing, do you think there's going to be a breakdown in medical supply chain delivery, base chemicals, et cetera, from China? Because if it is, it's just something different to think about in case that, supply chain were to be cut some way, and that is what people are relying on, then we're definitely going to have to think outside a box, if there's a box that exists, except the ones that's trying to trap our minds, but to think
mm,
outside that box of possibilities to substitute. And that's kind of my last question. I'll let you go. Is anything
yeah,
you'd like to
no,
say, please?
great. Thank you, Dave. Great questions. Uh, yeah, I think that we're always in those situations where we're we're reliant on a lot of different systems working together, from food, which is everything that you're working to make a better world and have people self-sustainable, and then accessing and gaining technologies that make them less vulnerable to being prey for the system that is so predatory in nature. So how do you empower yourself with tools in your home to help avoid the trap? And so number one, yes. So yes, I think that all of those things could happen. And so the number one thing then is to say, well, how do I make myself healthier? And these are things to then target your organs, because you're really relying on your organs, your brain, your heart, your kidneys, your thyroid, your liver. And so how do I eat my microbiome, the intestines, and just the whole digestive system. The gut is everything from the mouth to the anus. So like the whole gut, everything. Um, and then obviously then the bones support the bones. But you look at these most vulnerable areas, and then you think, okay, well, if these organ cells are filled with mitochondria, how do I support the functioning of these important organs so that I can make sure that they're functioning at the best level. And if you look at, just give one example, the study on levothyroxine with Hashimoto's, where it's a 9-month study, they only have them on it for 5 weeks, and they're applying it just 2 to 3 times a week. And when tested 9 months later, even though it was only for the 5 weeks, it should have been the whole time. It's a 47% of the participants don't need levothyroxine anymore. And what if they had done those parameters much better? Then what if they all could have had remission of the need? In this case, they would no longer have an underactive thyroid. They'd no longer need levothyroxine, which is Synthroid. So if anything ever happened with the supply on that medication that you rely on to stay alive, if it gets that severe, it's like kind of life-threatening if your thyroid's not working, then you've now regenerated your thyroid. You no longer need that. Your health is better. You're not in trouble like that. Same goes with liver function, kidney function. Kidney function is one where you got to be really careful. And I just saw this yesterday. And people are like putting off decisions that they could make today that don't cost much, that aren't invasive, that aren't painful, and to then have those harder conversations later where things are extremely expensive, even unreachable. But get ahead of all of these types of things and fuel yourself with what your organs need to then give the ability to then do its own detoxification, because it's very hard. Even like I have a supplement company, and I admit this to you, like I don't know exactly whether I can get that out of that organ in this way, because I need to do it also through electricity and electromagnetic biology. And so if you can get your organ cells to do this of their own accord by just fueling the mitochondria, because they will aid in detoxification, they'll do these processes, and then that's not fad detox, but you can then just fuel all these processes that then remove these toxins. This is the conversations that I like to have with people. Let's get ahead of this, and let's not wait for things, and take action on opportunities that you have, and make your health better. And take an opportunity like this with what we have and use it and see what happens for you. And I know it's going to change your life. I've seen it every day, and I'm just so moved by that, and I'm grateful for that. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Again, thanks for your valuable time listening to us. Jonathan Otto here from myredlight.com. We're going to get some more questions for you next time. And feel free to put any comments that you have. And I do hope you took something away from our talk, because it is going to be about the individual now. We're moving from the time of mega corporations, and you can see clearly that our oceans are being firewalled off in terms of transshipping goods flows, the economy. So we're coming in more to a regionalized world. And also in that regionalized world, we're coming into very much an individualized world where you are going to be responsible for so many of the things that the system took care of for you before. But during this shrinkage period, you're going to be relying on yourself a lot more. So this is just another way to think about doing that. And again, I'll see you next time. Bye for now.